Hello everyone, welcome to the channel, Never Lucky here.
Today I have for you an amazing elemental weapon damage build that actually scales well in the GM2 and GM3 difficulties. The build revolves around two weapons, the Divine Vengeance and the Thunderbolt of Ivania. So the Divine Vengeance, every third weak point hit causes a large fire explosion. This is an AoE explosion, so if more than one enemy are in close proximity, it will damage the group. And then the Thunderbolt, it has 33% chance on hit to do a lightning blast. That is RNG based. Sometimes you empty a clip and you don't get any procs. Sometimes you get 4 out of 5 bullets to proc. It's RNG based. So sometimes it feels bad, sometimes it melts. If you're okay with RNG, lean more to the Thunderbolt. If you're good at hitting weak points, even on those moving tiny enemies while you're floating in the air, we're buffing both of them, so depending on the situation, you would use the fire or the lightning. So how do we buff these? The storm components usually buff your skills and your elemental damage. So since these two weapons do elemental damage, fire and lightning, we're focusing on buffing those two damage types, and they're also blast damage. So we have elemental blast damage. So we are buffing those attributes. So the first component we'll be using is the token of daring. We want it for the elemental damage increase. We don't care about physical. And then the effect is nice, but it's not very important. Then the next one is token of the master. It increases our blast damage. Again, the yellow text is not important. We just want the 35 blast damage. Then we have Tome of Precision. It increases our electric damage by 5%. And then when we kill any enemy, we get 10 seconds of an extra 40% elemental. So it goes both to the fire and the lightning damage. And then we have Mark of Ruin. That increases our fire damage by 5%. And then when we prime an enemy, we get 50% more fire damage for 10 seconds. So those four are the base for buffing those two weapons. And the other, there's one more thing that buffs it, but we'll get to it. It's a skill. Then for we use the Mark of Wrath because they reworked it, and now when you do a combo with Storm, you actually get a large electrical explosion. So this is kind of like the Divine Vengeance explosion. It has an AoE, so if enemies are in proximity or if you detonate two enemies at the same time, they will hit each other, kind of like the Colossus combo works. Like if in a group of enemies, if you detonate more, you get a lot more damage than single target. So since we're buffing our elemental and lightning damage so much, it would be foolish not to use this new component or rework component. And then for survivability, we have softened blows. So when we lose our shield, we don't immediately die, because the Storm has really large shields. Like if you look at the components, he has double the shields. He gets double shields than what he gets in armor in the components. So if you lose your shield, chances are you're gonna go down. So softened blows gives us 5 seconds to get to cover and not die and start recharging our shields. There's no cooldown, so even if you get 5% of your shields before you get hit, you actually reactivate softened blows, and that gives us our survivability. And then for skills, we're using Ponder Infinity because we get this amazing 60% when hovering for your lightning damage. This buffs the weapon damage of the Thunderbolt, it buffs the combo lightning explosion from the new component or the reward component, and then it also buffs what else? Well, this skill, but the two things that we care about are the combo and the lightning damage from for the Thunderbolt. And then we have the new Black Ice, which is now amazing. It's a detonator and a primer at the same time, which is awesome. So if the enemy is not primed and you hit them with the skill, they get frozen immediately, and the surrounding enemies are also frozen. And then if you hit them again and they are primed, it will detonate and freeze them at the same time. It's super awesome. And then the good thing is when you actually freeze a group with the Black Ice and then you hit them with Ponder Infinity, you detonate more than one enemy if they're close to each other. And then the lightning damage from the combo from our component Mark of Wrath will do very good damage. It almost feels like the Colossus combo. It brings it up to par with the Colossus combo. So these are the components and skills we're using. And then for your support, I just equip whatever gives me the best stats. I wear this one for the 40% shield max, and then the luck. Like I've given up on luck. I don't even know what to do with luck. Just don't worry about luck. And then that's basically the build. Your buffs are really easy to maintain because they are naturally occurring while you actually prime and detonate and shoot enemies and kill enemies. So you don't have to do any crazy actions to get the buffs. So there's only two that actually proc and require you to do something. It's the Tome of Precision, and then it is on kill. So as soon as you kill one enemy, you get this buff, and then it refreshes every time you kill one. And then we have this one, the Mark of Ruin, which just priming with your Black Ice will trigger this one, and this stays up every time you use your Black Ice. So it's very easy to play too. All you have to do is be careful to have some cover between you and groups of enemies so you don't get melted. Alright, let's move on to some gameplay and some tips and see how this works. Here we are in the open world. The sigils I have equipped are Gear Sigil, because the Mark of Ruin takes away 20% of your recharge and it makes your skills a little sluggish. So I go for Gear Sigil. I go for either Lightning or Fire Sigil, depending on the situation. And then I equip a Shield Sigil for the refresh. Not so much for the increase in max shields as for the increase in refresh rate or recharge rate. It just makes them fill quicker when you are not getting shot. So let's go look at the lightning damage a little bit. Damage drops here. Check it out on these guys. So the Thunderbolt does 33,000 when I'm not hovering, and then when I'm hovering, the procs does 50. So it gets that 60% from Ponder Infinity. And another little tip is these guys. If you hit them on the head, on the front where it says 0 damage, it counts as a weak point, and you can actually proc the explosion. The same goes with the Scar Heavies. the armored guys with the shields, if you hit their shield, you don't have to hit their tanks. You can hit their their big shield, and it will proc the explosion in the center of them. And if there are enemies around, it will also hit them. So those are the little tips about how to use the Divine Vengeance. So let's find some enemies and talk about where to not stand, what to not do when you're playing this build, or when you're playing the storm actually, because a lot of people just hover in the middle of the battlefield, and they get shot by everything, and they end up going down a lot. So usually what I do is find some cover, natural cover. Let's say this. If the fight was over here, I would be actually hovering around this rock to be able to take cover and refresh my shields. And you can see if I get hit, how fast my shields refresh when I'm not getting hit. So in between two hits, come on, hit me. Alright, we got hit. See how fast it refreshes? I just need a little bit. Just make sure you find a place to get cover and refresh your shields, because that's your only defense. Now let's look at the AoE lightning. So I'm hitting two enemies now, and it does 76,000 proc, which is really good. And if there's two enemies, they will both hit each other. And then I just froze them with black ice. Sorry, and I'm gonna do it again, and it will actually detonate and freeze the surrounding enemies. It's a very good skill now. The reason I have Divine Vengeance and not just focus on one of the guns is some enemies are hard to hit their weak points, especially like the scorpions. I think their weak point is the mouth. Good luck hitting that, unless they're lifting and shooting. Yeah, I just hit, it's the under the mouth there. So I just use the thunderbolt on scorpions, and then if you have the ones with the sack in the front, that counts as a weak spot. Then I pull out the Divine Vengeance and then hit those. And that's pretty much it. Just play smart, use cover, and depending on the enemy, use your Divine Vengeance or your Thunderbolt, and you'll be fine. The damage is great, survivability is good, and
that's it. One more to go.
Good luck trying it out. I hope you guys like it. I hope it brings a lot of storms to higher Grandmaster levels, because I've seen some people are having trouble surviving or doing damage with the storm, and they just go freeze AoE builds just as support. But you can do damage, just focus on elemental damage. I have a little diagram on the buffs after this, and thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all soon.
Looks like more are headed our way.
Have a good one. Oh, getting shot. See ya.